Welcome to another episode of SportsVibe. Make sure I got it right this time, so there's no miscues. But feels like the first week every week, which is it's cool because it's a nice organic feeling that wake up early, get to do the podcast. It's always a good time. We have a lot of fun talking about it. But of course, you guys are here for sports content, so let's get right into that. It's been a big week in college football realignment and conference realignment, I should say. It's not only college football, though. College football is driving all these changes, and that's mainly what people care about, other than I guess, basketball, March Madness, especially men's basketball. But I mean, I just want to break down some of the moves that happened. Wearing my like black Rutgers jersey. I should probably get a red one, but because that's the main color. But I have a lot of Rutgers merch. Rutgers is impacted in this, because they're in the Big Ten, and the Big Ten just added Oregon, Washington to add to their um evolving conference, which already added USC and UCLA. So now the Big Ten is going from the East Coast to the West Coast, and in the Midwest where it's primarily located, around near like Chicago with Northwestern, Ohio State, Michigan, like the typical Big Ten programs. It's expanded all the way from coast to coast. And meanwhile, the Big 12 has added Arizona State, Arizona, and Utah to join Colorado. All of this happening in the 2024 season, where the SEC is also adding Texas and Oklahoma from the Big 12 themselves. So kind of a two power conference system here, and the Big 12 is probably like the third biggest conference now. Each one of these are adding teams, um, kind of leaving the Pac-12 with just four teams: Cal, Stanford, Oregon State, and Washington State. So the expectation is they'll probably fold and join the Mountain West, or maybe some Mountain West teams will come to them. There'll be a week in Pac-12 if they even stay alive. At that point, the ACC kind of roughly the same right now, although schools are looking to get out of their media deal with Clemson, Florida State especially leading the way there. So it's just a lot of changes. It really impacts the other sports besides football more, like all the smaller sports that you might not think about, like or even if you do think about like baseball, softball, even like swimming, tennis. Like for football, it's kind of like athletes will get to travel to the other coast. It'll be like one or two Saturdays, maybe like a year if that, and they'll still be relatively all right. But I mean, the other sports, like their athletes are gonna be having to travel a lot more on the other coast. So it really impacts them, although football's like driving the bus in terms of the economic decisions and the TV
I
deals that are
mean,
driving this whole
you,
process.
you can't really call this thing the Big Ten anymore now. Like
It's like the Big
you have to
18.
rebrand to like what, the Big 14 now? Or
There's 18 teams. There's already 14 teams, and they're gonna add four more, so it's gonna be 18.
exactly, you can't call yourself
I
the
know
Big
it's very bizarre, but I
like
mean,
you can't
yeah,
call yourself the Big 10, but calling yourself the Big 18 sounds even more stupid.
right. I think they're also gonna try to get Cal and Stanford in the
Oh,
future,
I
so
got
they
it.
could
I
go
got
with
it.
the Big
I
20.
got it. Until the next realignment, the eccentric 18. Boom, trademarked. I trademarked this right now as of August 5th, 2023 at 11:30 Eastern Standard Time. This is my trademark, eccentric 18. Anyone who wants to use the terminology must cite me in my credit from here on in, until the end of time.
Love it. Eccentric 18. So unfortunately, Big Ten's going to remain that name, but if they do add Cal and
That's just
Stanford, it could
stupid.
be the Big 20, I guess, which I guess could work. I mean, at that point, I think they really should do it because you can't
No,
really call
they're
yourself the
gonna
Big
push for
10 with
20
10
eventually.
more teams.
The Big Ten
Hmm.
will aim to like gain more schools to that point because
Oh, yeah.
not one from a marketing standpoint, but two from a money standpoint.
Yeah.
That's who like
Like
the
the
Big Ten
TV
is
deals
bigger
and
than the
all.
Pac-12, right?
Yeah. Right now, they're with 18 teams, they're going to be the biggest conference in the country. So, like, the
Yeah,
SEC is going to have
it,
16, so I think they're second. Um,
it's only going to be a matter of time before the Big Ten like starts to buy out like the other divisions. I mean,
yeah.
not
The other
divisions. What is
conferences.
it called?
The conferences.
Yeah, conferences. There we go.
Yeah, they're already starting to do that. The Pac-12 is basically falling apart. Everyone's taking their schools. The ACC, I think a lot of schools
Yeah,
want to leave. So in the
the
future,
Pac-12 has
they're
turned
gonna
into
go
a
after those
pile of
schools.
dominoes.
Yeah, Yeah, so that's it's very interesting to say the least. But I mean, yeah, college football
I mean,
realignment.
and I will say, even as someone who does not really care about college football, like as you highlighted before, that this does have like a fairly big impact on not just the colleges themselves, but also like I could see this being more like this could have more of an impact on the players who are like aspiring to go professional, like you know NFL, MLB, NBA, and all those things. Because now now with the realignment, excuse me, now with all this realignment and the restructuring the conferences and everything, uh, you're gonna create new you're you're potentially exposing new national spotlights, like and you're also creating new rivalries that I mean
Mhm.
they'll probably take time to
To farm,
develop.
yeah.
Like for example, like USC versus Stanford didn't really happen overnight. Like that took some time. I mean, and also a Pete Carroll. That's usually helpful for developing a rivalry. Um, but like this will create new like this could create new national spotlights for recruits who are trying to I mean, you know, they've already worked their whole lives to just make their college teams. This could bring up this could raise the bar for accepting others in terms of draft days. So um so like this could this could potentially be a good thing for athletes, but a bad thing for schools. Because like for example, like I mean, Rutgers, we can acknowledge we're not exactly the best college football team out of the Big 18. It sounds even more ridiculous every time I say it, but like let's be honest, Rutgers, we're not exactly the
Yeah,
best college football team
it's no
within the
secret.
conference. And this is before Oregon and Washington uh were not part of the were not part of the conference. Now with those two teams here, it gets a little more tough.
And those
Like,
are
you
some
know,
good teams too. Yeah,
yeah,
definitely
like
top 25
Rutgers,
caliber teams at
yeah,
the very least. So,
yeah, like for like in that sense, like now there's more competition amongst the collegiate athletes. There's more competition amongst the schools, and of course more bragging rights, more championships, like more championship aspirations and all those things. But like this kind of creates more pressure on the schools, not necessarily on the athletes, because like you know it's like this. Like if I were to compare it to hockey, for example, like in the past 6 years, two teams were added to the Pacific: the Vegas Golden Knights and the Seattle Kraken. I mean, I'm not saying that there wasn't pressure in the Pacific beforehand. Like, I mean, of course, like you had you had like you had the other teams there who still had the pressure and the chance championship aspirations. And of course, going into Vegas's inaugural season, like not exactly was everyone wasn't exactly thinking they were championship caliber, and lo and behold, they made the Stanley Cup Finals in their first year of existence. But adding new teams to divisions or conferences, it stacks up it stacks up like a player interaction. It stacks up division. It increases divisional rivalry. So it's good for us sports fans and it's good for the players, but it may not necessarily be the best for each individual team. You know what I'm saying?
um, I kind of almost, yeah, I mean, I agree. I kind of see it more like it's actually better for the schools themselves because they're getting a bigger revenue deal with than the Pac-12. I think the Big Ten leads all conferences and how much they pay each school, which I'm not sure what the exact number is, but I think it's closer to 70, 80 million rather than the Pac-12, which is like 40 million. So, I mean, each school really wins out here. The athletes maybe like not so much because they have to travel a lot, but I mean, at the same time, they're also playing in a bigger, more prestigious conference like the Big Ten. They're playing all these other schools. The matchups are probably going to be bigger. They're going to play, all the elite teams in the conference like Ohio State, Michigan. Some of these teams have already played each other. There's some rivalries that, can be formed, but well, yeah, I mean, a lot of
Well, yeah,
negatives in terms of
Ohio State and
travel.
Michigan are best friends. We all know that.
Yeah, well, that's quite the game. So I mean, it'll be interesting to see if Michigan makes it three straight over the Buckeyes. But this for this November, I mean, that's going to be a big storyline. Who wins the Big Ten East? Whether it's Penn
I guess
State, Ohio State, Michigan, are definitely the big three. But
I guess now the question
yeah.
is what happens to things like what happens to the Pac-12? Like, I mean, will it dissolve eventually? Like, what about like the SEC? NCAA is still probably going strong for a little bit. Big Ten, of course, is just like it's just like a black hole. It keeps getting bigger. It's swallowing everything. But like, do you think the Pac-12 could die out soon enough?
Oh, I think so because I mean they're not going to be able to do much with only four teams. So I mean probably. I mean there's a couple of options either. I mean their teams move down to the
Like
Mountain
some of those
West.
teams
I
relocate
mean
to like the SEC or NCAA, and then the Pac-12 is officially dead.
I think that might be what happens, but maybe not the SEC. There's like a group of five conference that plays in the same geographical area called the Mountain West. So those teams might just end up running the Mountain West, and because they'll probably be the best, some of the best teams upon entry. They'll probably,
Because
especially
they'll be the
Oregon
only
State and
teams upon
Washington
entry.
State. Yeah, exactly. And then, well, also, I'm not sure about Cal and Stanford, but I mean, at least Oregon State, Washington State, right? They'll probably be the
Well,
best upon
if
entry. Yeah.
Oregon, a Pacific team, has ducked to the Big Ten, I mean, of course, you can't duck to the SEC because Oregon is not exactly southeast in U.S. geography.
Right. I mean, yeah.
I mean,
The Big Ten kind of threw geography out the
if
window,
they
but
duck, like if Oregon ducked, I just realized Oregon ducks, Oregon to the Big. I didn't even try for that, but if Oregon ducked to the Big Ten, what's stopping Stanford? Like, what's stopping the other places? Like, it's only a matter of time
they
before
could. I feel
it's
like
officially
Stanford and
dead.
Cal will probably end up in the Big Ten also, because their academics also are very much in line with what the Big Ten wants. They're very, top academic schools. Even more so than like Washington, Oregon. So I mean, yeah, I mean that could very well happen. Especially with the other California schools already there. Oregon State and Washington State don't really have like a real place in the Big Ten, so they might end up going to the Mountain West or something, or maybe they might bring in. I don't know which way it's going to work. They might also try to use their Pac-12 status to bring in the Mountain West teams to join them and create like a group of five conference and the Power Five. I don't know. I'm not really sure,
I
but
mean, but it isn't,
one of
but
those things are going to happen, and there'll be a
that's
much
like
weaker
kind of the
conference.
reason why like the Power Five is slowly dwindling out now because the need for five, like it almost it I don't know if irrelevant is the right word because the Pac-12 is not exactly irrelevant, but like in the sense that when you have the Big Ten, the NCAA, and the SEC, like hardly like amongst college sports fans, how many do you hear them say like I'm just like be completely open-minded here since I'm trying to understand more about college football. How many of them will tell you that Pac-12 is their favorite conference? You hear lots of Big Tens, you hear
Hmm.
lots of SECs, and you
Right.
hear a few NCAAs. You don't
Well, the
hear a whole
NCAA is
bunch.
kind of just the overall like board that runs the show, like for everyone. It's not really like
Right.
its own conference, but
Yeah, but it's like still like
I
how
see I see what you mean though. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of Big Tens, a lot of SECs, a lot of like March Madness, like the whole tournament. People are like a huge fan of just that, or like the college football playoff. But not too many people will say Pac-12 because, well, a few different reasons. But I mean, yeah, it's just not quite as big, and the teams are not quite as good, and some of them are, but they're not quite at the highest level. Like we saw the college
divisions of
football
Rutgers.
playoff, two Big Ten teams, one SEC team that won it, one Big 12 team. Pac-12 wasn't there. I mean, the one thing the Pac-12 was, I guess, really good for. is Pac-12 After Dark, which is like basically West Coast games that like start way after
Yeah, but
everyone else.
we're not.
And, like, I
But
mean,
you and I, we're
yeah,
not going to stay up till like 10:30 to watch the start of a football game. Like we
yeah,
stay up till
that's
ten
like the
thirty to
end,
watch the end of a football game. Like
right,
for
right.
example, like the Super Bowl, it ends at 10 o'clock Eastern Standard
Mm-hmm.
Time. Like
Yeah,
that's perfect for us.
it
We're
is.
not gonna we're
Yeah.
not gonna kick off a Super Bowl game at 10:30. Like
Yeah,
that's
but sometimes
ridiculous.
people just, I don't know. It was like a whole thing because also those games kind of got crazy. It was like a thing. So they called it Pac-12 After Dark. All those games were like off the wall. And, after a long day of college football, I guess people would stay up and watch them. I mean, I kind of didn't really do that because I was exhausted after the full Rutgers game day and then the rest of the Big Ten SEC slate
I
finishing. And I
mean,
was just
like
like, I'm gonna
if
go to bed. But,
I mean,
you know,
if I didn't have a choice, I'd watch the Super Bowl at 10:30 in the night. Although, like,
right.
yeah, like might not
Yeah.
exactly be the best thing for going to work afterwards. Maybe you take the day off or something that
Yeah,
you
maybe if it's like one day. But another thing is the Pac-12, their streaming deal, they were gonna do it on Apple TV, and I think that's another reason that like the teams didn't like it because they're like, I want to see my team on
because
TV and
no,
not
like
like
that's the thing
not
though.
have to pay a
Everything is
subscription, even though things are heading in that direction.
like
That's kind of
everything is
another
being
wrinkle of
outsourced
it.
to streaming. Everything is being outsourced to streaming these days, and like people with the cable box want to cling on to those memories, but like at the same time, it's like the outsourcing to streaming is both a good thing and a bad thing because it's separate and like I'm not trying to classify fans into like the diehards versus the casuals. I am definitely not trying to do that when I say this right here. But like you will know your audience like when you're able to find out through market segmentation and all these things, you're able to find out how many fans are truly invested in the collegiate teams and just the overall conference and everything. When you find out how many of them have bought a subscription to watch the said product, like not everyone will do that. Let's be honest. Only a few would do that. Like that's how you know your true target audience. But I mean, look, like true as in like the diehards, like people like even like they'll just do anything to watch their favorite college sports teams. But
Mm,
it's also it's also bad in the sense that like it's only going towards one area. Like for example, going back to Apple TV Plus as you mentioned, like Apple TV Plus doesn't just like stream like college football, of course. Like they also stream other Pacific teams within the area. Like one famous team, like of course, this is the San Francisco Giants. Like they're
yeah, a lot of baseball on there. The
yeah,
MLS is on there. They have a bunch of different sports options
yeah.
for sure.
So like in that sense, like if you are a sports fan with like a a diverse like if you're like a I don't know, you live in Seattle or something, and you have a diverse sports fan portfolio, it's not a big deal you
Hmm.
because you love the Seattle Kraken, you love the Seattle Mariners, you love the Seattle Sounders. I think that's the MLS team.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know. Yeah.
Seahawks, I guess.
Seahawks. All right, the
But that you
Seahawks.
can watch on TV. But I mean, and
Yeah,
then the
like if
Pac-12,
if you
Washington,
love
like
all
yeah,
those
you get
teams,
a
it's
whole
not a big
package
deal to you.
together. Mm.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. But if you only care about the Seattle Mariners and you occasionally care about the Kraken, it's not a good deal for you. Like so, in that sense, that's where I see streaming as like an issue because it turns off certain viewers if you're not fully invested within the
Also,
market.
like you have to get all these different ones. Like some of them, these games are on like Peacock, like for NBC, like even some of the
Oh,
college football
there's too
ones, and
many
then
options. Like,
yeah, and then
uh,
there's Apple TV, and then there's like CBS,
like for example, like
A Paramount Plus, and less like which one am I supposed to do now?
for this upcoming NFL season, like the wild card game on NBC, like for one damn game, Peacock Peacock has played like Peacock has paid like $150 million or something for
Wow,
broadcasting rights just for a wild card game.
for
Like,
a wild card game.
and and this is NBC paying, like NBC giving the rights to their own streaming platform for this. Like, do you,
Right.
like does the NFL understand? Not everyone is going to buy Peacock, like, and like, not everyone's going to buy Paramount Plus. Not everyone is. I
See,
mean,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
yeah. So like, the streaming is both a good and a bad thing, because with streaming, like, you'll be able to find out your like, you as a corporation or whatever field you're acting as, you're able to separate, your general audience from the incredibly interested audience. But at the same time, you're somewhat alienating your general audience. So I don't know. I think like selling out to streaming, in this case, I'm not a fan of it. I really am not. I mean, but at the same time, like, I can't hold on to my cable box forever, because cable's like the new T-Rex. It's gonna die out at some point. Like
Yeah.
the Velociraptors
So
will
yeah.
outlive T-Rex. But I mean, even now the Velociraptors, you know, they're fighting for limited resources, and the T-Rex is right by himself doing all he can. Like, I don't know. Like, I think the idea of creating too many options has really screwed up the market for this. Like, if you left it to just Paramount Plus, Peacock, and I don't remember if Fox has a streaming service or not, then that's fine. Like, at least I mean, still, like, I don't imagine every sports fan would be enthusiastic to pay for three different streaming services per month, and that's not
Yeah,
counting.
that's all. And
Yeah,
then TV.
yeah, but like, no, oh right, and then TV. But now when you have in the game, Paramount Plus, Peacock, um, ESPN Plus if you're into that,
Right,
Hulu,
right. That's a good one. Yeah.
Netflix,
Yeah.
Disney Plus. That's way too much. Like, that's
Hmm.
that's what right there. Just like $100. That's well over $100 a month in just streaming services, right? Like, not every fan is gonna do.
Yeah. Because
So
yeah.
I think selling out to streaming in that sense is a terrible idea.
Right, because like what the Big Ten has is they have deals with CBS, they have deals with Fox, which they've had, and they have a deal with NBC. So like they're going to be on like all the major channels that people tend to watch college football and just regular
Exactly.
TV on. So like why not do something like that? Obviously, the SEC is known for their SEC and CBS thing. I think they also do a lot of with ESPN, and then ESPN also runs the SEC and ACC network, and
Right.
Fox runs the Big Ten network. So I mean you know. So the with all of that going on, um, it's much easier to watch if it's like, okay, now the Big Ten's on CBS and it's on Fox, it's on
Exactly.
NBC. Like
But
what
at
like
the same
why
at the
Apple
same
Plus? Like there's a
no, but like
million
at the same
sports
time,
channels.
if you were to sell out each conference to a separate streaming service, that would suck
No,
initially for the fans.
yeah,
If the Big Ten was exclusively for CBS and the SEC was exclusively for Peacock, and I don't know, the whatever's left of the Pac-12 is exclusively for Apple TV Plus, that's gonna that's really not gonna go well with sports fans. So like,
right.
I mean, like, some of us were already less incentivized to sell out to streaming when, like, for example, like, if I had to watch the Patriots, like, if the Patriots were only playing on Paramount Plus, fine, I would do it, even though I wouldn't be happy about it. I
Yeah.
still need to watch the Patriots. But
Hmm.
if the Patriots were run Paramount Plus, the Red Sox run. I'm just making stuff up, but let's say if the Patriots were only on Paramount Plus, the Red Sox were only on ESPN Plus, the
Hmm.
Celtics were only on NBC's Peacock, and the Bruins played on, I don't know, Apple TV Plus, I was very pissed off. Very,
I mean, I could
very,
just like imagine
very
this scenario.
pissed off.
Yeah, yeah. No, I
I
mean
mean,
the other thing is
imagine if they
like,
did the same for you. Like, if
yeah.
the Devils only played on NBC, if the
Hmm.
Giants only played on on CBS, which I don't know why they would, but like, and
It would be
and
Fox,
if
I
the
guess, but
and if
yeah.
the Knicks and if the Knicks only played on ESPN Plus, you would be pissed off because that's $50 a month right there, just going towards your favorite sports teams, and you don't necessarily want to use that $50 every month. I mean, like,
No,
don't get me wrong, I love my sports teams, but is it worth that much money like per
I don't
month
know. And
to
there's also just a million different channels that college football's on
exactly?
TV. They're already on CBS, like NBC with especially with the Notre Dame and now the Big Ten deal, Fox. I mean, ESPN, like all the conference channels, and then they have games that people don't want to watch on like CBS SN and like MSG, and I mean like it's just crazy. So now like why don't you just put your
Yeah,
network on one of
that's
those
right.
channels
That's
and
right. I
not on
didn't even
streaming
mention the local
services?
sports networks. Like, I didn't even mention that. Like, if you wanted to watch the New York Rangers, you'd have
Yeah, it's
to like
MSG and
you'd
then
have to like
or yes
yeah,
for like
you'd have to
for
watch
the
through one of
Nets.
the
Yeah,
MSG
and
networks.
Yankees.
And even then, the MSG by themselves, they have like two or three options. You have MSG Go, you have MSG Plus, and then one other
Right.
thing. Like, I don't remember.
There's MSG and then there's MSG Plus. I think they have a second one too. But yeah, usually it's Rangers
MSG
and
Go,
Knicks
I
and
think.
MSG and then
But
yeah,
yeah, but
MSG goes on the go. And then yeah, you could stream it. And then Devils, Islanders are usually MSG Plus and then yes kind of does Yankees and Nets. So I'm kind of like a mix because I'm like a Devils Nets fan. So I'm like on sometimes on
yeah,
MSG and sometimes
and
on
then if you
yes
wanted to watch them,
for the
and then
Nets,
if you wanted to watch the Mets, that's
And
SNY
that's
right there.
SNY, exactly.
Like
But that's still better. I'd
we're
rather
talking about the
switch
big
TV
sports teams.
channels than TV, like, like than streaming services, because at least you're paying
And
for it at the
streaming
same
providers,
time. Like, you know
absolutely.
what I mean?
Like,
Yeah,
listen, I'd rather be inconvenienced with the annoyance of having to go through 50 different channels to
yeah.
find my sports teams rather than pay for five different streaming services. I'd rather sell my kidney than pay for like 20 streaming services and
Yeah.
rack like $300 a month just to watch my favorite sports teams and my favorite sports conferences. Hell
Because,
no to
yeah.
that.
hmm
Hell
Yeah.
no. So like I think like the NCAA and like I don't know. I think this could be a disaster for college football and for sports as a whole.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I agree with that. I mean, with the Pac-12, I mean, yeah, I guess that's my main thing. Like college football, like, that's the beauty feel. I mean, that there's so many games on all these different channels, and usually the Pac-12 comes in at night or later on in the day, and it's on Fox, and like you might just have the TV on. But like if it's not, and every other conference has games on ESPN and CBS and NBC and Fox, and the Pac-12 like now that has four teams, but whatever, even if it had the teams. Like I just probably wouldn't watch it if it's at Apple Plus. I'm like, I already got my fix in for the day. I saw like the better teams that I wanted to see, and now I'm just done.
Of course.
And that's just
And you're
college
stuck and
football. I
then
mean, we
you've
haven't
already
even
paid and then you've already paid that lump sum for the month.
yeah
Like that's burning money as a fan. Like as a corporation, you don't care about that because and like as a corporation as a streaming service, you don't care because you've already locked in that revenue for the month. But as a fan, you realize that's wasted money. Like you're gonna realize that the best thing I should do is I should have gotten rid of that subscription 4 months ago because that's $80 down the hole right there that I could have used towards I don't know painting my garage or something like so
yeah I
it
feel
just
you.
it creates a pool of frustration and lack of incentivization. I don't know if that's a word. I'm gonna make it up if it isn't, but like it creates discord. There we go. It creates discord amongst sports fans. It like everything being sold to streaming. It's selling the soul to the devil.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And I think the other thing
And
is
not the New
like
Jersey Devils. We're talking
the
about the one down in hell.
actual yeah. No, I agree with that. I mean, it's going to make life very inconvenient, and that's why the Pac-12 a lot of those teams were like, I don't really want to do this. Like, how are people going to see my like our teams on TV? So,
I
I
mean,
think for that reason as well as the
maybe in
money,
that
they were
sense,
out.
but it's like maybe in that sense it's a good thing because if one conference is gone because the Pac-12 is essentially dead now,
Yeah,
with all of them being shifted over to the other leagues,
we'll
That's
get to see all those good teams, I mean, on TV channels and not Apple
yeah.
Plus. So
I mean
I think that's a W.
that could eliminate one potential streaming service that is dependent upon for viewers. So in that sense, the viewers could get more bang for their buck. But at the same time, the streaming service would get pissed off and probably want to breach their contract or something. So I mean, you'll create a war either way, whether it's amongst streaming or whether it's amongst fans. I just told this to corporations. You know who your true target audience is. You know they will never waver. You know what they represent. Do the right thing and stick by the fans.
Yeah, and yeah, so I think that's one major thing with this with in terms of streaming. And the other major thing is like the non-revenue sports, they're gonna be struggling with all the, the costs and the long flights, and that's gonna be a lot harder than the football team. And I think that's a point that a lot of people leave out because they're thinking, oh, it's gonna be college football realignment, and it also involves all the other sports too. So I mean,
well, yeah.
just something to consider here.
Now our
And Rutgers,
Scarlet,
all the other sports for
yeah,
Rutgers
like
are a
now
lot
our
better than
Scarlet
the
Knights will
football
have to
team,
go.
actually.
Our Scarlet Knights will have to go to damn Oregon for
Hmm.
6. We'll go on a 6 hour flight to Oregon. I mean, of
And
course, like
their athletes are gonna have to come to the East Coast and Midwest like a lot more.
yeah,
So it's
I
actually
mean,
gonna be worse for them,
here's the
too.
thing. Like in sports, of course, in sports, traveling through time zones has long been a thing.
Right.
Of course that. So I know maybe in that sense it teaches athletes how to better adjust their body clock. I don't know because you're being exposed to this like a little earlier than you should be. So I don't know.
Yeah.
So maybe that's another good reason why it's good for the athletes. But
Yeah. Get used to like I guess professional life when they do that pretty much all season. But I mean they're also in college, they have social lives, they have classes. I mean it's a lot, but and it's driven by one sport. And I guess I want to end with a positive. There's a lot of negatives about this, but I think the one beautiful thing is these new teams coming into the Big Ten and SEC. It's going to make college football a lot more fun. And I'm excited to see these new rivalries and these new games and these new trips and Rutgers playing at Oregon, vice versa. And it's just going to make for a lot more fun with college football, at the expense of just about everything else. But I mean, including in some cases the athletes and everything. But I mean, it's more money, it's more football, it's more fun, and it's the way things seem to be heading. So, with that, we are going to be signing off. We have the NFL preview series. We're going to be getting to the NFC North and AFC South. So stay tuned for the next episode.